Okay, welcome everybody. I think we'll get going now. We've got a few people online, so it's a good opportunity to start the webinar. Okay, I'd just like to welcome everybody today to our webinar, and today we're going to be talking about Nintex, their new releases for Office 365. And I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Rick DeMarco, and I am the Partner Manager for OBS. So I work with all of our partners, and today we're going to be talking about our partner in terms of Nintex. So now I'll just hand over to Kevin to introduce himself.
Hi everybody, my name is Kevin Anfield. I'm a consultant for OBS up in Brisbane. I mainly specialise in business process automation, so Nintex forms and workflow, as well as a few other technologies. And I'll be presenting a lot of the more technical stuff and showing you Nintex workflow and forms for Office 365.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. All right, so just a bit of an agenda about the items that we're going to cover today. So it's going to talk a little bit about who Nintex are. Some of you on the call may not know who they are. It's going to talk about how they've introduced their new products in the cloud, and specifically around Office 365. There's a few key points that it's probably important to understand about these new products that are available. Going to talk a little bit about some of the business value that you can get by using the new technology from Nintex. A lot of people sort of ask some questions around how does it compare to out of the box, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And I guess the most important thing, which is probably why everybody's here, is to run through a series of demos, which Kevin, as mentioned, is going to take you all through. Okay, so I know there are probably a number of you who are quite familiar with the Nintex brand and associated products. However, for those who are hearing about them for the first time, I'll do a bit of a sort of a brief introduction. So Nintex are primarily a SharePoint products-based business whose sole focus is really about helping organisations automate business processes and extending those processes to where people actually work on any device they use. One of the common words that, or the catchphrase that Nintex use is around being SharePoint for everyone, which is really about allowing all types of users within an organisation to build, deploy and automate processes quite quickly and easily. And they do this by using their flagship product, Nintex Workflow. So Nintex, I guess, after releasing their Workflow product, quickly realised that many of these business processes that were being automated needed some way of capturing input from the user. And they also identified that there was a clear opportunity within SharePoint to improve the overall design and UI elements of standard SharePoint forms. And this is where the Nintex Forms product was born. And more recently came the introduction of the Nintex mobile apps, which really extends the power of Nintex Workflow and Nintex Forms onto mobile devices. And this allows users to respond to tasks, workflow tasks, as well as complete various forms from anywhere, anytime, and on any device. Okay, so now with the introduction of Office 365, and I guess playing an important role in Microsoft's investment in the platform, Nintex has decided to develop from the ground up their new Nintex Workflow and Forms product for Office 365. So let's have a look at a bit of a high level about what they can do. So we can now design and run forms in the cloud. Like the on-premise product, you now get access to the full drag and drop experience for both Workflow and Forms. And this really allows you to sort of build highly scalable business processes and customize those processes to better engage users. And this is where the Forms product comes into play. Nintex have also introduced this concept of the Nintex Store. And the Nintex Store is really a container for a whole collection of different enterprise actions that can be used within your workflows. And these actions can range from things like Exchange Online for sending meeting invites to connecting to your on-premise site. It also includes a whole range of actions to cater for things like provisioning of Office 365 accounts, associating permissions, and also doing a range of things with inside Yammer. And we're going to show a number of these actions through our demos today. And lastly, through, I guess, the creation of Nintex forms, we can really extend your business processes outside of your organization. So now it's really easy to create, deploy and publish web and mobile enabled forms using the Nintex Live platform. And so you can extend these forms throughout your organization or externally outside of your organization. And the Nintex workflow also allows you to automate many parts of the process, so when dealing with external parties. And like I mentioned earlier, this is going to form sort of a key part of our demo today. So I guess there's a few important points to, I guess, talk through around the new products. And the first one is that just like Office 365, the workflow and forms is really a software as a service offering. So it's sort of in line with the Office 365 model, and it shouldn't be different to anybody. The other important thing, it's being developed and built on the new SharePoint app model. So those of you who have, I guess, an Office 365 tenant, you'll notice that everything's an app that's available for install. And SharePoint has an app store, and so the apps are basically available through this store. Importantly, however, that these apps are actually hosted in the Azure platform and not within Office 365 itself. It's also important to understand that these products are actually completely new. So Office 365 actually has a brand new workflow engine, and Nintex has actually developed the product to interact with this new engine. So the engine is actually a different workflow engine compared to the on-premise platform, which is why they had to basically build a brand new product. And like I mentioned earlier, there's this concept of the Nintex store, which Kevin will show sort of through the demos. At the moment, there's probably around 60 or 70 different actions available. However, in the future, Nintex is going to make a range of actions that are actually going to be available for purchase. And so, as you can see, by doing that, there's going to be an ever-growing amount of actions available in the store. And I guess for the people that are familiar with the on-premise product, over time, a number of these features are going to be made available within Office 365 where they make sense. So now I just want to talk a little bit about some of the business value that's I guess available through using the Nintex products in the cloud. So those who are familiar with the Nintex family suite probably already know that at its core, Nintex is really about helping organizations improve business processes. And this is done by empowering business users and IT professionals to quickly and easily automate processes. Now that could be from a simple leave form or leave request to complex integration across a range of different applications. And so Nintex has had these solutions available for the on-premise environment for quite a long time now. And so now they've actually enabled them for Office 365. The other great thing, as I mentioned earlier, is because they're apps, it's really easy to get going, and you can literally be up and running, building your first form or your first workflow within seconds. You know, there's no need to wait for any infrastructure or IT people to deploy the solutions. They're there and available for you to get going quickly. And because it actually is a cloud product, there's constant innovation. So you will see over time that there's more and more actions that are actually going to be available within 365, and that will be an ongoing process, and they will become more and more available as time goes by. So the good thing is you always know that you're actually going to have the most up-to-date version because it's in the cloud. It's quick and easy. So Nintex really prides themselves on saying that their products are focused on the business user, and as a result, this makes the products really easy to get going, really easy to learn, to use, and to master. So we know that many customers will continue to have a hybrid scenario where they use their on-premise SharePoint environment with an Office 365 environment. So these products enable you to be able to talk between the two different platforms. We'll talk a little bit about that in some of the demos. So if you have an on-premise environment, you'll be able to push information into 365. And however, coming back the other way, you'll also be able to push information from Office 365 back into your on-premise environment, and Nintex makes this pretty simple. And like I mentioned earlier, Nintex workflow and forms is really about trying to help you go beyond the out-of-the-box experience that you get with 365, and really about making it easier and simpler for users to get up and running really quickly. So like I mentioned earlier, just talk a little bit about sort of the SharePoint workflow versus, I guess, the capability that you get with Nintex. So Nintex provides obviously a whole range of different actions that are available to you. And like I've already mentioned, things like, the Office 365 licensing, there's a whole range of actions around social media, Facebook, Twitter, Yammer, and those types of things. You can access things like external file shares and even interact with Exchange Online. So there's a lot more actions available to you if you're going down the Nintex path. I've already sort of mentioned this quite a number of times, but the actions are continually being added to the store, and I can imagine this time next year there'll be literally hundreds of available actions for you to use. The great thing is, out of the box, you can get drag and drop functionality. This is available for both forms and workflow, so it's really easy to get going. And the other thing is that Nintex have made quite a big investment in making their products cross-browser compatible. So the things that we're going to show you today will work in Chrome, Firefox, and the IE browsers. So it doesn't really matter that what browsers people have, that they should be able to get up and going pretty quickly. So I guess now it's time to actually jump into the demos, and I guess that's why everybody's here today. So the first demo we're going to sort of talk about is, I guess, an onboarding process. Most organisations have a way of onboarding new employees, and we do a lot of this type of work for many of our customers around trying to automate a number of those processes. So really the objective of this demo is to show how we can automate onboarding new employees into Office 365 using the forms and workflow products. So Office 365 presents a few challenges around creating new accounts and assigning the correct licensing options. There's a whole range of different licensing options available in Office 365. And this is where we can actually use the actions from the store to automate a lot of these tasks. Alternatively, this could also be done, but you'd have to do a lot of it manually. So having said that, I will now hand over to Kevin to talk about the onboarding process. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Rick. I'll just make sure that we are looking at my right screen. Yep. Okay, so you should now be able to see a Chrome window. And what we're going to initially do is fill out a new employee form. This would typically be done by someone in HR or a recruitment type area. And this just really asks for some basic information about the person, first name, last name, what department they're going to be part of, and what date they're starting on. Throughout the workflow, we'll use a lot of this information to create the account and assign the license and all of those kind of things, going back into the sort of admin area within Office 365. So we'll just create our new employee. This form that you can see here is an Nintex form that we've obviously customised with an OBS logo, some naming, some colouring, some slightly different colouring on the labels, and a few different things. So we can just fill this out. It's sort of fairly simple to fill out. Oops, if I could spell my name correctly. And we'll choose a start date of Thursday next year. So I'll click on Save, and just like any normal SharePoint scenario, that saves an item into our new employees list, and the workflow that's on this particular list is set to start automatically on creation of a new item. So while we're talking, our workflow has started. Like I said, you can see that I'm in Chrome, and that form worked perfectly in Chrome, and as it does in Internet Explorer as well. So just because I've got everything set up in Internet Explorer, we'll just bring that window up now. And you can see here that this is the designer, the workflow designer, for the workflow that's currently starting and running in that background. So I'll just quickly take you through some really simple facts of the designer. Obviously it's in the browser. Those people with keen eyes can probably see that there's a slightly different URL at the top there, and that's because it's now we're running inside an app within our Office 365 area. It looks and feels very similar to the on-premises version of Nintex Workflow if you've used that. If not, it's pretty simple. You can get to some settings about the particular workflow, give it a name, description, and set up how it starts. We can access some variables. All workflows have lots of variables, and you can see this one here. I've got lots of different variables to do lots of different things. One of the new things that's slightly different from the on-premises version is how you create variables. So, test variable 1, and we can choose lots of different types and those kinds of things. We've got lots and lots of different actions. Like it's been saying, this version of Nintex Workflow for Office 365 has a whole lot of actions that the SharePoint designer or the out-of-the-box workflow designer has, but it also adds a lot of those other Nintex store actions. And you can see here, these ones here that I'm hovering my mouse over right now, they're all the standard actions, but then Nintex adds all of these other Office 365 actions. And all of those actions are built or added into the design surface from the Nintex store. So, and you can really easily access that Nintex store just by clicking on the store button, and then you get a window which allows you to browse through all of those different actions that are available by Nintex or other developers when they see fit to create other actions. And for example, we've got actions specifically for posting or adding a message or adding a file, to SkyDrive. We've got ones that go into Yammer, which we'll be using throughout this workflow. So there's a whole lot of different actions that you can do for lots of different purposes. And a matter of adding those, so if we wanted to add these Facebook ones, it would just be a matter of adding the whole Facebook pack, and then they'll be available in that toolbox pane on the left-hand side. So just wait until it does that. We'll close the store down, and then eventually we'll be able to see those Facebook actions. So talking about the workflow itself, obviously it's a drag and drop interface, like Rick said. So if we wanted to drag an action onto the designer, it's just a matter of clicking down and holding down on the action in the panel, and then dropping it on one of the dots, and then that automatically adds it into our design surface. And to configure it, we just double click on it, and then we can configure the specific properties for that particular action. And obviously all the different actions have lots of different settings and those kind of things. So it really depends on what the action is as to what you need to do. I'll just delete that one so it doesn't dirty up my workflow. So while we've been talking, more than likely what's happened, if everything is working correctly, is we've got through all of these initial steps. We've created an Office 365 user, which I'll go into our admin portal and check to make sure that it's worked. We've done some smarts around licensing. So because there are so many different license plans available for Office 365, you need to retrieve what's available in your specific tenant or your instance of Office 365. You need to do some processing on those, and then you can assign the license to the user. And then to make sure that they can actually access the SharePoint environment, you can add those users to a security group. So while we've been talking, I'm positive that we would have now had a new user created. I'll just refresh the screen and show you that so you can see it. While I'm waiting for that to happen, it's taking a little bit longer than I thought, we'll just refresh this screen so we can see the new item, the new employee item for Daniel. And we can go into the workflows screen, and we can see that our provision new employees workflow is running, and it's currently at the status of creating a blog post. So what at this point in the workflow, the workflow is actually waiting for me to do something, or waiting for Daniel, the new employee, to do something. So I'll just show you a few things. So I'll just drag across one screen. You can see down here we've got Daniel Miller. So he's our new employee. He's been created. And if we go into him, we should be able to see the licenses that he's been assigned, which is all of them. But as an administrator, you would be able to go in here and change these if you wanted to, or as a workflow designer, you would have been able to choose a different license plan to apply to this particular user. I could also go in there and show you, that he's been added to the group, but we'll see that in a second once we try to access the actual environment. So I just need to grab his password. Actually, what should have also happened is I, as the person who created the item, I should have also received an email, which I have. And this shows that this has also been sent to Daniel, the new user, to say that your new environment or you've been added to the OBS cloud environment, you've got access to this site, here's your username and password. So we'll just copy out that password and I'll log in as Daniel in another browser. These kind of things we need about 15 different browser windows to be able to demo them properly. So I'll try and explain everything that I'm doing right here. Just better make sure I copy that correctly. There we go. Okay, so we're just logging in this other window now, and as Daniel, we can see that we've actually got access to a slightly different site collection, so I'll just go to the right one. This would have done. So now we've got access to that area, and this list view here tells me that I need to fill out this particular item, and one of the things as part of this process that we're doing is we're asking the user or the new person to fill out an about me and some interests and expertise type fields in that new employee list item, which will then get updated in certain areas within SharePoint. So if I now go back in and edit this particular item, we'll see a slightly different view of that original form, that Nintex form that we saw. So that doesn't seem to be happening. I'll just grab a link from somewhere else. Won't be a second. We'll copy that shortcut and so that link that you just saw me copy and paste was built up from the email. So as part of the email that gets sent to that new user and to the HR person, you can add in the ID of the new item that's been added, and so you've got the right link for someone to click on. So we can see now that this form's changed a little bit. So these fields here, they were hidden when the form was in a new state, and that's one of the settings that's available to us in Nintex Forms. I'll show you Nintex Forms after this next stage, and you can sort of see what that looks like as well. It's very, very similar to Nintex Workflow. It's obviously just about designing forms. So what we'll do here is I'll just copy in something that one of our other consultants uses as his information about himself. This is Des Russell, our records management and information management practice lead. So his expertise is obviously in records management, and he's a mad keen cycler, so his interest is cycling, and his mobile phone number is like so. So at this particular point in our workflow, it's at a pause, and it's waiting for me to fill out this information before it proceeds on to the next stages. And those next stages in our workflow are all about creating a Yammer account. So we're going to go into Yammer and create an account in our Yammer network, which I'll show you in a second. It's then inviting Daniel, our new user, into that Yammer environment, and then Daniel can go in and quickly fill in his details and get access to Yammer. It'll also automatically create a blog post. I'll just show you some of those things in here. So we've sent that email. We're waiting for the fields to get updated. We're creating a blog post, which I'll show you in a second. We are creating a Yammer account and then sending a Yammer invitation. and then also posting a Yammer message so we can announce to all of the Yammer audience that Daniel has started and he has automatically created a blog post. So we'll just quickly go and look at some of those things now. So if we go into our new staff blog, which is just a blog site, you can see on here that Daniel Miller's got a new blog post, and I promise you that that's been added in by that workflow. We can also go into Daniel's email, which I'll just bring up in another screen. If we click on to Outlook here, new tab. So we're logged in as Daniel, so we'll look at his email. Whenever a new user accesses email on Office 365 for the first time, they just need to set up a few things. I'm in Brisbane, so we don't observe daylight savings, so I'm going to make sure I choose the right time zone. We can see that Daniel's been sent a Yammer invitation and a link to complete the sign up into Yammer, specifically for our OBS Cloud 365 Yammer environment. So I'll go in and complete that sign up. Obviously, because I'm doing everything as a few different users. I'm an admin. I'm Daniel. I'm an HR person. I hope it's not too confusing for you, but we can go in and complete the sign up for Daniel. So we'll put in a few details about himself. Put in a password. And then we could fill in those other details if we really wanted to, or just quickly get through these screens. Next. And potentially by the time we're there, the admin account, no, it hasn't already created it, but you can see, oh, yes it has just then. So we can see that Yammer has automatically created a message because Daniel Miller's joined the network. And then we can also see that from our workflow, I automatically wrote this particular message into Yammer and clicked included the link to the blog post that was automatically created. So then the whole of Yammer can now see that, well, Daniel started, he's joined, and his blog post has automatically been sort of advertised to the rest of the Yammer network. So that's our new employee process. Obviously, typically that would sort of happen over a few days, not within sort of 10 minutes in a demo scenario, but it obviously would add a lot of value into organisations if an HR person just needs to fill out a single form, and then the employee, when they come on board, would get those emails and be able to access the information that they need to access and sort of advertise to the rest of the organisation, hey, this is me, and this is what I do. So we'll just quickly go through there. No, there's nothing else in there. I'll just really quickly show you the Nintex form, just so we can see that that actually works. So obviously both Nintex Workflow, like Rick was saying, Nintex Workflow and Nintex Forms are both apps, and when those apps are added into your site, you get two new buttons. You've got the Nintex Workflow button and the Nintex Forms button. And because this is a list, we can we can customize the form using Nintex Forms. So when you open up the app, again, you can see from the URL that we're in an app environment. We then get, if you've seen Nintex Forms before, this would be pretty similar. It's a little bit different, but we've got all of these different controls that we've got access to, columns within the list that we're running on, and the real power that you get with Nintex Forms is the ability to have different layouts. So we can add additional layouts, such as using a tablet, say an Android tablet, specific to an iPad, Windows, or specifically to an iPad tablet as well, or an Android tablet, sorry. And you can, as new features in Nintex Forms become available, all of those different layouts, there'll be iPhone layouts and other types of layouts as need be. So we'll move on to our next scenario. Obviously, if anybody's got any questions, they can just type them into webinar chat, and I think, Rick, you'll need to let me know what those questions are so we can answer them as we go. But I'll just bring up the rest of the slides, and Rick can introduce the next scenario while I get it all ready.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Kev, for that. Well, I just will add one thing, I guess, to the layout side of things and designing views for different devices. Like I mentioned earlier, the Nintex actually has a set of mobile apps specific for the individual devices. So at present, those apps are not available for Office 365. However, sort of probably within the next probably 6 months or something like that, those apps will become available, so you can actually use those devices to do things like take photos and capture GPS coordinates and all those types of things. So, so that'll be pretty exciting when that comes about. Okay, so the next example we want to talk about is, I guess, around external collaboration. And Kev, I think you might just need to switch over to the presentation.
Oh, can you see what I'm doing? Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Screen sharing. Show. Can you see the presentation? Sorry about this, folks.
That's all right. Yep. Okay. Can we see it? No, I can still see your form.
Oh, right. Now?
Nope.
Oh, no.
That's okay.
Rick, how about we go back to you?
Okay. Yep. We'll switch back to me.
Yep. There you go. All yours.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry about that.
That's what happens when you do demos in different states, but that's okay. So the next example, we're going to talk about how we might, improve the process of, collaborating with external parties on different projects. And we just want to talk about how we might be able to automate that. So in this example, we're going to talk about things like provisioning of a new project site for a new project, and then how we might invite external parties into this new site that we've created, and then give them access to, the different information based on their roles. And we're also going to show how we can use Nintex forms where these new external parties need to, accept a set of terms and conditions before they actually get granted access to the site. So that's just a brief overview of this next demo. So I'm going to switch back over to Kev, and he can take us through that.
I'll just quickly opening things up. I should be able to show my screen, and hopefully you can see that the workflow is now opening.
Yep.
So we can see a workflow. Whoops. Okay, so this particular workflow, again, we've got an Nintex form that starts it by filling out some really simple details in this particular scenario. So if we go into our project sites list, and then add a new item into our list. So the real advantage, this is something that I do a lot with clients, is use Nintex workflow to create sites for people. A lot of the time you want to give the power of the typical SharePoint collaboration areas to end users, but you don't want to give them site owner access so they can actually create sites the standard way. So by using Nintex workflow to do that, you can reduce the amount of permissions that people need to create these sites. So long as they can add an item into a list, which is exactly what we're doing, that actually means that then they can create sites as well. So if we call our project, just looking around the city to see if I can think of something. So we've got a project called New Coal Mine. I should have added in some external participants. I'll just quickly go and edit that. Whoops. Sorry, folks. So we'll just, oops. Oh, no. And just to make it easier, I'm just using a couple of my accounts, and we'll save that. It's not going to be too bad because those external participant fields aren't picked up until a little bit further on in the workflow. So we'll just quickly show you that workflow that workflow starts and begins to run. So again, we're in that same interface. We're setting up some variables. Now the big one in this particular workflow is the fact that we're creating a project site or creating a site. Now this particular one is just using the project name as the title. It's using some tokens for the current site URL, so you don't actually need to do that. That means that you can use this workflow in multiple places. We're giving our site title and a few other bits and pieces to make sure that the create site action actually runs as a user that has permissions to create sites, and that's what this particular section here is all about. So I've just got those all in variables just to make it a little bit easier. So we're creating our site. I reckon by this stage, if I just refresh the screen, a new project site has been created. So let's just open that up so we can prove that it actually got created. So all we've done there is we've used the create site, and then we've updated a field in that for the particular item to include the URL to that new site. And there we see our new coal mine site has been created. So what happens now in the workflow is that we need the person who started this to manually add in some external, those external participants in to share the site. At the moment, in the current version with the current actions, there's no action to share a site with other external users. Nintex have told us that that's coming, and I imagine it will be fairly soon, because that's one of the real advantages with using Office 365 is the ability to share a site with external people. So if we now go back into our site, actually if I go into here, we can see that me as Kevin Anfield, the project manager in this sense, I'm doing lots of different roles at the moment, there's a description here of the tasks that I've been assigned. I need to share a site with external participants, and it tells me who I need to share that with. So I'm just going to copy those out just to make my life a little bit easier. And in Office 365, so this is standard Office 365 functionality, we can just click on share, and then I can just, because I'm a little bit lazy, I can paste those email messages or those email addresses in, and welcome to the project site for our new coal mine. So that'll then send an email to those particular people, so on those email addresses, and it will have a special login so they can log in and authenticate into that particular site. So I'll just I'm hoping that the email has come in. Excellent. So I'll just show you Outlook. So this is the outlook.com email address that I've got. So I'm just going to make sure that it all works properly, I'm just going to use a different browser again for this. So we'll just get that up and we'll browse into that site, because if I was to just click on that, it would try and log me in as my OBS Cloud 365 email address, which just wouldn't work. So we'll just log in here. So I'm logging in as Kevin out. So I'm now the external party that is, that's right, it changes the login page a little bit when you use an outlook.com address. But what this really means is that any person with an email address, and that if that email address has a Microsoft Live ID associated with it, you can then invite and share this particular site with that user. So this is huge. This is something you can't do in on-premises SharePoint. These are now, they're really unlicensed users, but they've got full access to the site. And because of the way that I shared this particular site with these users have got contribute access to the site. So that's real power in being able to really easily add in people into these sort of external collaboration type sites. What also potentially has come in, I'll just wait for it to come in, it hasn't yet. But what should be happening now is, oh no, that's right, I forgot a step, sorry. So I, as the project manager, need to say that that sharing site, that task that I had to complete, is now being completed. So we'll just go in and complete that task. And then it will go in and assign a task to these external people to say that they need to accept the conditions of this particular site. So we'll just approve that and save it. So that obviously that task form, sorry I skipped over it pretty quickly, but you can probably see it in the background there. That task form is again an Nintex form that we've customized on this particular workflow task list. And you know, you can use those Nintex forms on any list. While in the on-premises version of Nintex forms, when it's used with Nintex workflow, you can customize those forms directly from the workflow. In Office 365, it's a little bit different. You go into the task list itself, and you can edit the task form from within that task list. But the experience for the end user is exactly the same in the long run. So I'm just waiting for the task assignment email to come in. We may actually see them pop up in this task list. No, not yet. So let's go back into our workflow and see if there's anything else we need to talk about here. So we're now at this point where we're assigning a task to these external users, or to those people that I put into that external participant box. This seems to be taking a little bit of time, so what I might just quickly do is I'll show you one that we used just while I was testing stuff out. So we'll just go into this one and I'll show you what that task form looks like. So what we did here is, you know, we've got some very specific terms and conditions for our particular project, and you know, we don't want to have them listed in our task form. So what we did is we included a link to a document that's inside a document library, and then that opens up inside Word Web App or Office Web Apps within our Office 365 environment. So now we can see that document, and you know, you can, it's actually obviously our client engagement agreement. But as a user accepting this task, I can then just go and quickly read through this, switch back to that other window, edit the item, and then approve it. If we included a link to the edit form, so directly to this form, you could do the same thing. You could click on that link and then click on approve and save, and then that finalizes our task. So at the moment, I guess the end goal of this particular process was to make sure that we can invite external people, which we can through this standard interface. Like I said, that'll change in the future when those actions become available from Nintex. And then we can, I guess the real power in this is then being able to assign tasks to those external people once they have become standard users within the environment. So then you can still get those external people to do things if need be. So that's that's the end of this particular scenario. Our next scenario, I'll just switch you back to Rick, and he can give you an introduction into the next one.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kev. So hopefully everybody can see, I guess, you know, one of the key things that Kevin spoke about in that scenario is the ability to actually share out a site with external people. You can imagine on-premise that's almost impossible to do without opening up your site and giving access to external people. So yeah, it's a real benefit that we see for companies being able to go to Office 365. Okay, so the next scenario we're going to talk about, and I guess I've mentioned this a few times about how easy and simple it is to actually design a workflow within the tools. And so here we're actually going to build a pretty simple document approval process, and Kevin's just going to show how he can actually do that on the fly, publish the workflow and run it. So I will hand it over to you, Kev.
Thanks, Rick. So in this particular scenario, we've just got a standard document library on our Office 365 environment. This is in that project sites site that we had, and all we're going to do is if the demo gods treat me kindly, we'll actually build a workflow on the fly. So in that document library, we just click on the library tab and then Nintex workflow, the button in that tab there, and we get the design surface straight away. So all we're going to do is what our scenario is somebody uploads a document into this library. It needs to go through a really quick single-stage approval process. In our scenario, it's assigned directly to a person, but if you needed to, you could use some metadata and other lists to have a list of approvers for certain departments or certain field types or settings and those kind of things. In a real scenario, that's pretty much what happens. You assign a task to a group or assign a task to a person that you've looked up that's used as the document approver for that particular department or something like that. In ours, we'll just do it quite simply. So going into our user interaction area, we've got an assign a task action, so we'll just drag that onto the interface, double click on it. Now I'm going to need to go back out. I just wanted to show you this action quickly. I'm going to need to go back out, create a variable, and then come back in, but you can see how easy it is to start to add some settings into this action. So we'll assign our task to Rick. Our task title will be, we'll use the name of the document, so we can just pick that up from here, so double click on that and we can add the name directly into there. I'm not sure if there are people on the call who have used Nintex Workflow on premises, but adding references is nowhere near as easy as that. And I personally, I spend my days in Nintex Workflow, and I can't wait for the on-premises version of Nintex Workflow to have this functionality. It's a really nice feature. So we can say our document name requires approval. The description can be something as simple as this document requires your approval. We'll do the due date as today, so we want to make sure that these things get done straight away. Now this particular action is just a slightly different interface of the action that comes standard in SharePoint Designer. And when you start clicking through all of these different options, you can see that a lot of the values and settings and those kind of things are very standard. But we can have an email that gets sent on task creation. You can customize the text within those, any reminder emails, and then if the item gets deleted or the workflow gets terminated for some reason, then you can also send cancellation emails. So one of the things that we need to make sure that we do, I'm not sure if you noticed when I drag that action onto the design surface, is it doesn't branch out. It's just at the bottom of the action. We need to do some logic checking to see what the outcome of that particular approval was. So, and we need to set that up in this particular variable here. So I need to go back out and declare a variable. So we'll just declare a variable here, and we will call it. Again, this is a slightly new interface for creating variables. We'll call it task outcome. Personally, if I was creating this in a real scenario, I'd name it something like this, just trying to get some workflow best practices out there so we can instantly see what kind of variable type it is and those kind of things. So we'll, and that particular action that we're setting up, it uses a number for the outcome that's specified when the task is completed. So it needs to be saved into an integer type variable. So if we go back into that task and then select that variable that we just created, see there we can instantly tell that we've got an integer type variable, which is a nice way to go. So we've now set up our task. That's great. We now need some logic in here to say whether the task was approved or rejected, and that's done through using the conditional branch action, which we can find. I'm not sure if you've noticed when I've been searching for or when I've been finding actions, you can use this search function here. So we can just type in, for example, you can type in Yammer and you see all the Yammer actions. So we'll go back into here and find our conditional branch, drop it onto the design surface, double click on it to open it up and configure it. So we want to say where our workflow variable, which is called task outcome, is equal to 0. So when a task is approved, the task outcome value is 0. When the task outcome is rejected, it's 1. So what that's going to tell us is that when it's approved, this particular action is going to resolve as true, and any true action goes down the right-hand side of the path, and any sort of rejected in our situation will go down the left-hand side of the path. So now what we need to do is we need to update a field on our item to say that it's been approved. So our approved path is this side. So we want to update our approval status field to be quite simply approved, if I could type. And then what we can do is, this is a fairly standard feature of Nintex workflow, we can copy that action and then paste it over in this branch. And then we can double click on here and say not approved. Obviously when we copied and pasted like that, it retained all of the settings for that particular action. It's a really, really fast way to build up functionality within workflows. And then the last thing we want to do is send an email to the initiator. So we can go in here and find our initiator. If we click on here, so the initiator is the person who started this particular workflow. Under workflow context, one of the items or one of the items available is initiator. So we can insert that. We can say we'll use that name field again, so they've got some context of what's been rejected. Has not been approved. Your document was not approved. Something as simple as that. We'll save that, and now our workflow is built. If we go, one of the things that we need to make sure that we do is set the workflow to start on create. So in our workflow settings, we can see in here that we need to select this checkbox, start when items are created, and we'll give our workflow a name. So document, approval, and save. And then now we can publish that workflow so that it's available for people to run when they upload an item or upload a document into this particular document library. So I'm just going to really quickly create a document for myself to upload. Document 1. So now if we go back into that document library, just open up a new window, we can go into documents, and fingers crossed if everything works like it should have, we can upload a document, browse to my desktop, and find document 1, and OK, and save that document. Our workflow should now start. Rick should get a task, but we might just we've gone into Rick. I'll just complete that task for you. Document 1, which one it is? Probably this one. Because of my level of permissions, I'm allowed to complete tasks for people. Typically, it's only the person who is assigned a task can complete a task. So we'll just edit this form. We'll approve the task, and then we should task status is completed, and it's approved, and then we can save it. So obviously through that approval process I would have gone and viewed the document and reviewed it and all of those kind of things, but obviously I'm not going to go down those steps for now. So that task is now completed. We can see that that task title has been crossed out, And fingers crossed, if we go back to our document library, we can see that the approval status has been updated to approved, and in that particular scenario, the initiator wouldn't have got an email, but we could have sent the initiator an email as well. So that's right to the end of our allocated time and also our demos. So I'll just hand over to Rick to complete the presentation. And like we said, if anybody has any questions, then just type them into the chat window, and we'll answer them when we do.
Great. Thanks, Kev. As you can see, that's pretty straightforward to build a workflow from start to finish. Because we're near the end of time, it's going to run through a couple of small things just around licensing. So just like Office 365, the workflow and forms product is a subscription license, and it's usually a per user per month setup, and typically there's like a minimum 12 month sort of commitment for that. And one of the important things to notice is that, all of your online users that are part of your SharePoint environment need to actually be licensed for the product. So if you're interested in sort of some more specifics around pricing, please contact us, because there are a few different variables around things like, if you're an existing Nintex customer, the length of contract you're looking at committing to, and there's different bundling options if you'd like to purchase sort of forms and workflow together. So we can definitely help you with that. The other thing is, to get started, OBS is more than happy to I guess help you get up and going with a trial. As we've already said, it's pretty easy. If you've already got a 365 tenant, you can quickly go in and enable the apps. However, if you don't have a tenant, we've also got some sort of detailed instructions on how we would help you get up and going with an Office 365 trial tenant, which you can then use to install the apps. So please contact us if you like some more help around that. And the other thing is that Nintex have sort of developed a bunch of videos, sort of tutorials on these products in YouTube, and there's a bunch of links there. Don't worry about copying them down, because in the next day or two we'll actually send everybody a sort of a follow-up email with a bunch of different information, and we'll include the links to all these videos, so you can actually to have a look and start having a play. So on that note, I think we're just about out of time. We'll open up for questions. We'll just open up the question view. All right. So I think the first question is from Sue. I guess this is relating to the audience. So I guess there's multiple audiences for these types of products, depending on who's actually doing the work. So, like I said earlier, Nintex sort of prides themselves on making their products really easy and simple to do, and as you can see with the examples that we've done, fairly straightforward. However, I'm sure Kevin can attest to, it really comes down to the requirements that the customer's after, and things can get quite complex, and that's where, I guess where OBS would typically come in and help customers through those more complicated things. But definitely it's something that you should be able to get going, and especially around the forms product, it's quite easy to sort of, change the look and feel of your forms to make it a bit more appealing to your users. So Kev, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that?
Not particularly, no. It is really a fairly simple product. One of the interesting things with Nintex Workflow is it's very easy. That document approval one that I created, I think most people would probably be able to work that out within half an hour of starting to use a product. To do some of the more complex ones, like the initial one that I showed, you've got to have a decent understanding of the way Workflow works and some certain constructs and those kind of things. But really, if you just want to do very simple approval type workflows, then I imagine, and I've seen it, anybody with sort of half an hour to an hour spare to learn the product and read through the help can usually find their way around things. That was another point I wanted to make as well. The help within the Nintex workflow for Office 365 and Forms for Office 365 has changed completely. And it's really, really powerful. It's going to be much easier for Nintex to update it in the future as well. So it's a much nicer help interface that's available now. So.
Yeah, and I think that sort of relates to a question from Amia around sort of the user guide. Yeah, all the user guide is sort of online, so it's easily accessible. We're going to make this recording available for you later on, so you can share that with your colleagues if they weren't able to attend, or share it around. Trying to see if there's any other questions. I think that's
just a quick one on that help or user guide. If you might need to write this down or type it down as I'm saying it, but if you go to help.nintex.com/workflow365, that's just a standard site that anybody can access. That's got all of the help files and those kind of things available for people to see. So, and then obviously the other side to that is on connect.nintex.com in the download section, and also in the forum. There's a lot of people there happy to help you out with questions that you might have about the product or about workflow design or form design, whatever it might be.
Yeah, so we'll send a link to that site. We'll also send a link to the Connect. There's a site called connect.nintex.com, which has got a whole range of other information. It's sort of the primary forum for Nintex users to go in and, I guess, collaborate and ask questions from the product team and get answers like that. So we'll send all that information around in the next sort of day or so. And the recording of the webinar, yes. All right. So I think that that is the end of all the questions. So on behalf of Kevin and OBS and myself, thank you very much for attending our webinar. Hopefully you got a bit of sense about the Nintex products in Office 365, and I'm sure hopefully you saw the value, and I encourage everybody to go out and have a bit of a play, and let us know if you need some help. Thank you.
Thanks.